Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're not judging me, right? So
Right.
why would anybody judge you doing that?
I mean, I am.
Well, you do.
Yeah, I'm
It's part of
constantly
your
judging you.
Hello, and welcome to Middleish, the podcast about moderation in all things. I am Erin Green.
And I am Michael Gray. And I'm living on the edge today, apparently.
Oh, how is that?
Because I don't know that anybody will see, but right as Erin was introducing, I decided that was a good time to take a sip of coffee. And I was like, oh, wait, we're doing a thing.
I might need to talk soon.
Man,
Well,
I live on the edge.
You know, last time you actually were away from your mic for several minutes while I was rambling on about my favorite Middleish episodes. So
Yeah.
I think I can handle just a few seconds of you sipping
good.
coffee.
Yeah, I haven't gone back and watched through any of that yet.
Oh,
haven't
I
heard it,
told Matt
but I'm
that
really
story,
excited to.
and I showed him the picture. And I said, oh, yeah, we had an interesting recording today, because he was like, it's the 1 year, he was really excited.
Mhm.
And I said, we had an interesting recording today. Let me show you this picture. Tell me what you notice. And he looks at it and he goes, oh, babies. And I was like, right. Guess what? Michael didn't see that. And so I told him the story and he was laughing just hearing me tell the story. So I hope the podcast was just as entertaining.
Yeah, I think it will be. I don't know, maybe. But to be fair, I'm in the middle of recording a podcast. I'm not paying close attention to a spider. I'm trying to kill it as quickly as possible and get back here. So
Actually, you were paying close attention to that spider, because I watched you stare off into the distance for several seconds before.
right, or it was 6
you're
feet
still
away.
looking. You're still
I
looking
still
in that
look-
corner. You're
I
like,
still look
God,
for those babies.
more."
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I was looking at it. I wouldn't say I was paying attention because I was trying to do this. It was, yeah.
Right.
It was,
Yeah.
I was trying to multitask, which, as we'll find out in today's episode, may not be a great idea.
I think you did it well. You did it well. It's
Yeah, I
all
haven't
right.
watched any of it, so I don't know what sounds are in the background. Where, yeah, and
The
what an
sound wasn't
episode
as-
to have it on.
I know the sound wasn't as funny as watching you scamper back and forth across the camera, across the
Yeah.
room. That was pretty entertaining.
Which we won't get on the video recording.
No, but
Oh well, that's okay.
I was describing it. Don't you worry. There was
were
a
you?
little,
Like,
yeah,
there goes Michael.
there was some narration going on my end. So
Oh man, I can't wait to
I
go
think-
back and listen.
I hope we got the experience for everybody, but
And twice, because then it was, you're like, there are babies on there. I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't even think. And I look down and there are like 30 little baby spiders like all across my baseboard. I'm like, ah!
they like explode. Yeah. They just go everywhere and they're like survival mode, run for the hills.
Yeah.
And when you texted me on Monday, of course, the spider is still, that's the last thing you had texted me. And
Yeah.
so I opened my phone and I'm like, there's a picture of a spider there.
I had the exact same experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. I went to text you
So-
something and it was like, oh, okay, I'm deleting that. I don't want to see that anymore. Like,
I know.
get that out of
I
there.
know. Creepy. Yeah.
So yeah, if
So-
you're wondering about the crazy spider story, go back to episode 52.
Oh, it's good stuff.
So this
but-
is, oh, sorry, I cut you off. You're going to say
No,
something.
go ahead.
This will be the official episode 1 of season 2,
Yay.
right?
Check that out.
Yeah,
Look
we're
at
on
where we
season
are.
2, baby. Look
Rolling
out.
through it.
1 year down.
I know.
That's kind of exciting. So then I
It's
guess we'll have to figure out, will
every-
this be episode 53 or episode 1 of season 2?
Yeah.
We'd
I guess
label
we'll
that.
see.
Hmm.
I guess we'll see how that shows up on the platform.
Yeah.
That's stuff
We'll figure that out.
we can figure it out.
But yeah,
But
season 2, here we go.
thank you. Thanks
Yeah.
everyone for hanging with us. It's
Yeah,
been a fun
same
year.
cast.
Same, I know.
Same cast. Nothing different.
Same 3 listeners. Thank you so much for being here. So before we started recording, you were kind of asking me about, or I think we talked about Monday and just the fact that Monday is when we drop the podcast,
Mhm.
but we both, I think, a little bit dropped the ball because
Little bit.
I'm training for this 200-mile gravel race, which I know is not Middleish, but we can discuss that at a later episode about how Erin balances the
Yeah.
Middleish life with these kind of extreme events. But so I had a big training ride to do, and it had rained all weekend, and there was one window of decent weather on Monday. And I had a buddy who was willing to do this crazy long ride with me. And we're basically just riding on this dirt river road all the way back into the mountains, like that butts up against the Sawtooths and this tiny little town of like 100 people in Idaho. So that was the ride Monday. And I'm about it's 125 miles round trip. And so I'm probably around mile 40 into it. And I'm like, oh shit, it's podcast day. I'm responsible for writing the description. So I was like, well, I didn't see it posted. So I could argue that it wasn't posted, but I also didn't check. So it's on me. So I'm thinking, and I had no cell reception all day, even from where we parked the car.
Yeah.
So by the time I got into cell reception, it was like almost 7 o'clock at night. And I'm like frantically checking my text messages. And I see Michael had texted me and was like, oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't get the episode up until it was like 6:30. And I was like, oh, thank you.
Oh, it was up before then, I think. Maybe that's when you got the text, but it wasn't up early by any means.
So I was having a little bit of a panic that I was holding up the train and that you were possibly trying to get a hold of me all day and like, hey, when can we release this podcast? And I was like, shit. So, but it all worked out because we still got it done. I was a zombie when I got back home and wrote the description, like literally just, I want to eat and just melt into the couch because I'm done, but I got it done. So anyway, that was my Monday.
Yeah. I didn't get it edited until like Sunday night. I meant to on the weekend and it was a busy weekend. It just got away from me. I was like, oh crap. And then I meant to, because it takes a while to upload to YouTube, and like I have to compress it and all that stuff, and stuff just takes a while. And so I got it edited on Sunday, and then I meant to get back to it, like got the girls to bed and everything. So it was Sunday night. And I meant to afterwards to compress it Sunday night, and then I'd start uploading Monday morning, a couple hours, be up by 10 in the morning or something. And I forgot to do any of those things. And I come into my office Monday morning, I'm like, oh no.
And this is a good segue for our topic today, because I think we mentioned a couple episodes ago that my friend Sean Watson acknowledge that, man, this must be extra work for you guys, to make sure that you do this every week. And it is, so you're getting a little behind the scenes, sort of thing. If I clear my schedule on a Monday which doesn't happen often, but if I do, I set my auto response on my email and I make sure that I'm kind of caught up, from the weekend, but I might something like this, that's just an extra thing that in a lot of ways it kind of runs itself, because we have a specific day that we record and, each week we switch off social media responsibilities and it's pretty loose, but it's one of those things, like if I forget that there's something to do, and Monday is just hard, like, so yeah, we'll talk about how to, maybe prevent those pitfalls in your own life.
Yeah. Cause did you say what we're talking about?
I did not.
Okay.
Why don't you introduce it?
All right. Yeah, we're going to talk about time management, which I think is such a great topic. It's kind of a seemingly, I don't know, maybe kind of uninteresting topic. I don't think it is, but I think it's something I deal with a lot with clients. I know you probably do too, and maybe not directly, but it's just looking at, we all have the same hours in the day, right?
Yeah.
We all have the same days in the week
for everything.
Yeah. We all have the same resource. Now, what things are already taken away from that resource can vary, for sure. If someone's working 60 hours a week versus someone working 20, well, yeah, someone else has 40 hours that they can maybe do more with, but still we all have the same amount of time. And I think oftentimes when people feel like I don't have time to cook or to exercise or to plan my week or to take care of myself, I'm not going to say all the time, but I think most of the time, a lot of the time, it's not that we don't have the time. We have the time. We're just using it in other ways already, right? We're already spending that currency somewhere else. And so it's not about finding time, because you're not going to find time.
Right.
Like you have what is it 168 hours in a week? Is that what it is? I don't know, something like that. So whatever,
Something
7
like
times
that.
24 is, but we all have the same amount of time and you're already using all of it, right? Like
Right.
it's not like you just like have some stored away, you know, in your sock drawer or something. Like it's gone,
Right.
it's being
Dig
used.
some
And
out of
so,
the couch cushions or
right,
something.
like, ooh, I found some time in a pocket in my closet. Um, so it's like we're already using it. So if we want to introduce new things, then we have to make time. We have to reprioritize. We have to maybe shuffle things. Sometimes got to come from somewhere else where we're already using it. And that doesn't mean that we're going to sacrifice important things necessarily. You know, I mean, if you watch 2 hours of Netflix in the evening every night, nothing wrong with that at all. You know, I think that sounds like a good evening, but maybe some of that time can go towards something else, you
Right.
know? And so just looking at how do we prioritize our time, maybe reorganize it to be successful to things that we're really wanting to put time and attention into. And I think maybe combating a little bit that knee-jerk response if I don't have time. Because I think often the case we probably do. We just gotta make it happen.
Yeah.
That's my
Yeah.
intro.
And that's a great intro. And you
Thank
hit
you.
on so many things. Yeah. It was gold
Yeah,
star today.
I feel
Gold star.
really good about it.
You hit on so many things that I run into with clients all the time, because when we talk about health changes or, overall wellness, or even like really granular things like food prep and preparing a meal, a lot of times it comes down to, I don't have time for that, or what's my availability like. And I struggle with some of this conversation with people, because I will see potential, like you said, okay, you're watching 2 hours of Netflix, or okay, decided to do this with your time instead of this. So I see it as a priority thing. And I'm fully aware that I do this to myself as well. And don't you worry, I'll get into throwing myself under the bus, because I am a master procrastinator. I've
Same.
been known to get distracted and squirreled into different things or whatever. So
Yeah.
I'm chronically 5 minutes late. So,
Yeah.
so I get this. Okay.
Yeah.
But it's really interesting when I have given wellness and self-care presentations to rooms of people, and I kind of ask, like, what are your main barriers? And the vast majority of them,
Right.
time is number one.
Mhm.
But it's interesting what happens when you shift your priorities. All of a sudden, those barriers that you knew were concrete and you knew were, this is my barrier, become more of a perceived fluid kind of manipulative, a barrier that's able to be manipulated, I guess,
Right.
instead of being this firm, I just don't have the time. Well, what's that saying? You either make the time, if you don't make the time for being healthy now, you'll have to find time to be sick later, or something like
Yeah. Something
that.
like
So there's
that. Yeah.
something like that that's basically like, if you don't find the time now,
Right.
and it doesn't have to be a lot. We'll talk about some strategies and
Yeah.
how this lines out. But
Yeah. And I think that's a fair question. And I think, I don't know that, we need to say this, but maybe it's worth saying, like, just know that Aaron and I, like, there's no like judgment here, or, or anything about how people feel about what time they have available and that kind of stuff. We're not, I mean, I struggle with time management all the time. I'm way better than I used to be. I still struggle with it. I still spend my time doing stupid stuff that I don't wish I'd done. And I'm like, oh God. Okay, well now I don't have the time for that thing because I already spent it all doing something stupid. So there's no judgment here. This isn't like a guilt trip or anything like that. But if I do think it's worth mentioning that if you're hearing some of this and you maybe kind of bristle against it, like, oh, really, you're going to tell me I have time that I don't have, kind of thing, that might be an indicator that you are making this decision, you don't have time, before really looking at whether or not you can make the
right,
time for it. And
right.
I do think this is a common reason. Um, Again, no judgment, no guilt trip, nothing, just shooting straight here. I think that a lot of times people use that I don't have time excuse or reason to avoid really giving this an honest shot,
Mhm.
because honest shots in the past have been shitty, just to be
Yeah.
honest, right? They've gone
Yeah.
terribly. You've busted your ass and you've worked so hard and you've made all this progress and it all falls apart and over and over and over. And it's just like, you know what? If I just don't have time to do that, then I never have to face the reality of this might not go well again. And I can't handle this not going well again.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just going to keep that at a distance, and I don't have time. And I really think that if that's your knee-jerk response to any of this, then it really may be worth taking an honest look at, okay, why is that the thing I fling out there instantly? Because some people
Right.
do, they'll
Right.
reach out to you and want to talk to you about stuff. Well, I just don't have the time to do it.
Right.
It's like, okay, how do you
Well, and
know?
some of that I think comes from the belief that we have to like look at the whole food prep
Yeah,
craze
right.
or some of these workouts that you
Great
have
point.
to take an hour to go do this workout or you have
Yeah,
to get out all of these ingredients and make it
yeah.
all pretty and put it into boxes and whatever.
You want to
I'm
be
not
healthier? Hope you have 20
Yeah,
hours in a week.
exactly. So I think some of that pushback is when
Hmm.
people see this messaging or hear it and think that I have to whittle out like, 3, 4, 5 hours in a week to
Right,
do all these things when
right.
really you could, and you can multitask. And
Hmm.
we'll talk about how that could be effective or it could not be effective. But
Right.
there's ways to put it in there when making some of these healthy changes. But one of the things I wanted to kind of talk about today too is have you noticed when you ask somebody how they are, what do they usually say? I mean, I get a very common answer, kind of the first thing that
Busy.
comes out. Busy.
Is that what you're gonna say?
Yeah.
Yes, I got
Why
it
are we
right.
so damn busy?
You know what I think we
Busy.
are?
I
I
say
don't
it
think we
too. Like
are.
we're busy.
I
But
don't
yeah,
think
but we
we're
have this perception.
I think it's a badge of honor. Like I think we
Oh,
feel like we're
totally.
supposed to be busy. And it's like, I just don't have the time to do that stuff because I'm so busy.
Mm-hmm.
Like I am much busier than you. And the reason you can do all these things is because you're not as busy as I am. If you were as busy as I was, you couldn't be doing
Right.
those things. And it's this big assumption. Maybe we've talked about this before. I don't know. But that if someone is doing things you wish you could be doing or wish you were doing, that they have more time to do them than you do, versus maybe they've sacrificed some things, right? Maybe
Yeah.
they've given up some things that they really enjoyed to do these other things because they've given them a higher priority, right? Or maybe they've learned to manage their time better, to be more efficient. Maybe they get the same stuff done that you get done just quicker because they've practiced it more or looked at ways
Mm-hmm.
to do it better. And again, that's not a judgment. I think it's just to automatically assume that someone is has more time than you, knowing nothing just because they're doing certain activities that you don't feel you
Right.
have time for, it falls apart pretty quick.
Well, and I'd challenge people to be aware of when they say I'm busy
Mm-hmm.
because and I'm fully aware that I use that too. Like when people ask how I've been doing or how are you doing? Oh, busy. And I've really tried to stop using that word unless it's truly appropriate. Like, wow, today has been a wire to wire day. Like I've been
Right.
very busy today with these things. But in general, what else has been going on in my life? How have I been spending my time? And
Mm-hmm.
again, going back to some of the procrastination distraction pieces, I'm very aware that there are times when there's nothing that's actually demanding of
Right.
me. It's just I'm spending my time and then all of a sudden I'm like, oh shit, I have a client call in 10 minutes, or oh, I have to be at this place, or oh, I
Mm-hmm.
haven't gotten my workout done and I need to get it done by this time. And so it's kind of that losing time and losing yourself in the time. But then all of a
Yeah.
sudden it creates this urgency, and then you feel busy. Like you feel like you're in high demand
Yeah.
because you have failed to plan ahead and think about those things. So
Right.
yeah,
Which
we'll
does
talk about that.
make, I mean, if you're doing things inefficiently, yeah, that feels busy,
Yeah,
right?
totally.
If you're kind of always stressed, that feels busy. Because when you're in a stressed time of life, you could have 4 hours with nothing to do and it's going to feel chaotic. You know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
that happens. And so I think a lot of what we want to talk about today is like, how can we be more efficient with our time? How can we plan things out? How can we take some time that we feel like maybe we don't have to do some planning to really make the rest of the week like go a lot easier? And I think that's something that is often a kind of aha moment for clients, is like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't have time to cook some meals on the weekend. I don't have time to write out a dinner plan and then go grocery shopping for it. But then when they do a couple times, they're like, "Oh, this is saving me so much time."
Right.
Like
And angst.
and yeah, and like and even like busyness in your head, like if you come home from work every day and you're having to go, okay, what am I going to make for dinner? What do I have? What do we have last night? Versus if you just have a plan, like, hey, it's Tuesday night.
Mhm.
I know I'm making this and I already bought the groceries for it. You don't have to think about anything. You just do it. And that feels like you got a lot more time because you're not spending this mental energy going, okay, I've been making decisions all day. Let me make some more. It's just
Right.
fun. And it
Oh,
feels
and
like
that
it frees up a lot of
decision,
space.
I actually wrote an article at my old work on decision fatigue,
Mm-hmm.
how there's a theory that
It's a
we
real
all have
thing.
a number of decisions and mental energy to put toward these decisions every day.
Yeah.
And the more you pile on yourself to make a decision, after you've made so many decisions, then it can really be a barrier for you.
Yeah.
Like you just start shutting down and you're like, I don't care. I don't care what I eat. I don't care if I get this workout in. I don't care. I just want to get home or whatever.
Yep.
Um, so yeah, that's important to think about is how can you know, better distribute that mental energy.
Yeah.
And I mean, you have here the definition of time management is simply the process of organizing and planning how to divide your time between activities.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I have a section on planning a little bit later, but it really is kind of taking a look at when will I have a little more mental energy to devote to this? And when will I actually have minutes or hours in the day that I can devote to this?
Right.
Very different than, being crunched on a random, Wednesday that's super busy and all of a
Right.
sudden it's 7 o'clock and you just picked up your kids from practice or whatever, and you've got to figure out a meal right now. If you had
Right.
kind of seen that coming and had divided up like how much time am I going to spend on these tasks and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And we both know, you guys, Michael and I know that this is not always going to play out in a pretty fashion. So you
Yeah.
can have the best laid intentions and still
And sometimes
like
it might completely fall
struggle.
apart.
Yeah, it blows up in your face.
But I mean, if
So
it only works half the time,
it's still a benefit.
that's a huge improvement. And I think, the thing about this is that let's say you have 40 tasks in a week that you need to get done, right? Okay, just some random number, meals, work, whatever. You're going to have to decide when to do all of those at some point anyway.
Yeah.
So, do you want to decide 40 different times when to do a specific task? Or do you want to sit down and get in the zone of planning and allocating time to things and do it all at once? Because it's going to take away less time,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And I think we don't think about it that way. It's like, well, to plan my week out just takes us time. It's like you're going to have to plan all these things anyway. You're going to have to decide when to do them. And if you can do it all at once or a lot of it at once, you're in that headspace to be doing these things. You can look at the whole week at once. You can look at practices and, activities or whatever. And it's just, man, it saves you so much time to
Mm-hmm.
do these things ahead of time. It really, really
Yeah.
does.
And that's one of the things I talk about. We'll dive into planning a little bit deeper here in a little bit. But
Right.
Michael, you found some really good benefits and consequences
Yeah.
that you put up here
You
to
want me to read
time
through those?
management. Yeah.
So these are from, oh shoot. I'm gonna have to find where I found these because I want to give them credit. I stole these
Are they
off a
from
website.
mindtools.com or was that a different that was the definition of
Ye-
time management?
no, I think it was. Yeah, I think it was from mindtools.com.
We'll link this in the show notes.
Yeah. So benefits of time management, of taking some time to just kind of, line out your weekdays, that kind of thing, are greater productivity and efficiency because you're not making these decisions in your day. You're just acting, right? You're just doing the things. Better professional reputation because you're on time for things like,
Yeah.
phone calls. And yeah, these things are important. Less stress because you're just executing, you're not trying to figure all this out in between tasks. Increased opportunities for advancement, and then greater opportunities to achieve important life and career goals. So those are some of the benefits of this. Go ahead. Do you just want to say something?
I found a statistic. I found a meta analysis on time management that was just published in January of this year. And it said that time management is more likely to get a positive performance review now than in the 90s, which I think speaks to how our culture has shifted over the last, you know, 10, 20, even 30 years. We definitely are in this culture of high productivity
Yeah.
and high efficiency. We want things fast, we want them now. We don't want to spend a lot of time doing things, whether it's going to get food or whether it's having a meeting. I mean, we have these instant ways to get a hold of people, text
Yeah.
them, email them, call them. And so I found it really interesting that in the work and career space, that time management becomes a lot more critical now
Mhm.
in the society we live in. And so it's not necessarily, I mean, you kind of have to roll with the times in a way, right? We're in the time of technology. We live in a society that's high productivity, and that expectation is there that you are always available, you're always on top of it, and you're ready for action
Right.
basically any given moment. But if you can plan your day to accommodate some of that demand, but also take care of the things that you need for you, and in order to have that space for your work demands, I think that's where this planning ahead and sort of managing your time a little better will fit in.
Right. Yeah. No, I completely agree. And I think there is a more of a demand to be highly productive, but I think there's also sort of I need to at least portray the illusion of being highly productive.
Right. I'm
Because here's the thing,
busy.
right? Yeah. And here's the thing. So you have another statistic down here that I'm going to say, if that's okay.
Sure.
So in 1965, 50% of workers took breaks on a regular basis, right? In 2003, so 18 years ago, it's probably only gotten worse. In 2003, only 2% of workers took breaks. So
Yeah.
here's the thing is if you are really working for 4 or 5 hours straight, you know what really decreases? Your productivity. It just
Yeah.
takes longer to do stuff because your brain's mushy and you're just like you're so bogged down. And so, but it's like, no, I didn't take a break today. I didn't have a break all day long. I worked 10 hours and no break. It's like you probably didn't get much done,
Mm-hmm.
versus, and I've done this with clients before. It's like, hey, let's take 3 10-minute breaks in the day. And what happens is they go out, they go for a walk or, whatever, they get outside, they do something, they come back and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm so much more productive. Like I took some
Yes.
time, I stepped away, I came back, and I'm just doing stuff a lot faster and I'm getting more done by taking these breaks. And we don't what's the word? We don't really admire that. That's sort of like oh, I wish I had time to take breaks during the day. I'm just too busy for that kind of thing.
Yes.
It's like, well, you
Yeah.
do. You do.
Yeah.
And you might get more done if you do.
Well, and I just read, I was trying to find where I read this, but I just read something about productivity and how your brain really works best in pulses.
Mm,
So, and I think we're going to talk about this when we get into some of the techniques here for time management, because this link that I had put up um, is a good one. But basically, your brain needs that time to be hyper focused and really work on things, and then space to sort of step away from it and
yeah.
recharge in a way. So, like your example, if you're sitting there for 4 hours straight, chances are you're not hyper focused. Chances are you're getting pulled in 1,000 directions with emails or texts or, a funny
Social
video
media.
someone sent you. Yeah. Or like just, I mean, people are working from home now. Maybe they go to the kitchen. Maybe they notice that there's a dusty shelf. I need to go wipe that off. Like there's, your pet comes in and wants attention. So you're actually not truly focused for
Yeah.
that 4 to 5 hours. I think some people really, I've gotten myself into a groove before
Mhm.
where I'm like working on a presentation or I'm sifting through research or something that you really do need like a chunk of time to really stay focused and go through it. But I will be fully honest that I don't think that's when I produce my best work.
Sure.
And it doesn't happen that often. Like I'll kind of, it'll be self-imposed. Like I really need to sit down
Yeah.
and go through, this task or whatever. And
It's
then
one of those,
I plan
okay,
a
I've
break.
got to get this
I
done.
have to do this, shut the door, turn
Right.
everything off. And I have a planned break, an end time.
Yeah.
So that's another way to look at this. And we'll talk about that. I keep saying we're going to talk about planning. I
Yeah.
should maybe just talk about the
Let's do
planning
this.
piece.
Let me do the consequences real quick, and then let's get into planning, because
Okay.
I think that's probably the bulk of what we want to do anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. So consequences of poor time management would be missed deadlines, inefficient workflow, which we've just been talking a whole bunch about, poor work quality, again, just talking a whole bunch about, poor professional reputation and a stalled career. Ooh, that's not fun. And higher stress levels, because we all need more stress.
I know.
Right. You know what I don't have enough of? Stress
Yeah.
in my life.
I think I'll put a little time crunch on myself.
Yeah, let me make this a little worse.
Yeah. And we also have seen that, I mean, this could be, you could look at this as a benefit or consequence, but that time management is positively associated with perceived control of time. So we do not have control over the seconds that tick away.
Right.
You don't.
Right.
But a lot of people find comfort and power and motivation in that perception of control.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my friends who coached me for years told me at one point he was looking at the season ahead and he said, I felt like my calendar was running me. I wasn't running my calendar last year.
Yeah.
And so that was he needed to have that perception of time. Of control of time, and then job satisfaction goes up, and then it's also positively, time management is positively correlated with health. So all of those things, we could look at if any of the opposite happens, with those are consequences, like that feeling of being out of control, having low job satisfaction. And I get this a lot when I work with people, especially in the nutrition realm. Geez, they don't have time to truly take a lunch break or truly feed themselves. And food is a basic need, people. Food and sleep and shelter. So if you're sacrificing those on the regular, you're going to come to resent your job and probably the people that are imposing that kind of schedule on you. So this is a hard conversation to have. Then we're getting into the dynamics of talking to your boss about, hey, I have too much going on. I have too much on my plate. I need to restructure how this is done and some of the deadlines here. And that's a hard conversation to have, especially if you're high achieving and, you want that promotion or you're very dedicated to your job. So it does get complex really quickly, but it doesn't have to be as complicated. There's some simplified ways to just put a little time management in there.
Okay. Okay. Do you want to get into planning, or you want to go through those techniques that
well, let's talk about the techniques in a second. I'll hit on planning because we already kind of went into, when you were talking about the making of the decisions, like you have to decide how you're going to do those 40 tasks or whatever you have staring you in the face. You're going to have to decide when to do those at some point. Right. So I will encourage people to just take a look at your week or your day ahead. Okay. If you have a calendar that you put appointments on, if you write things down on a big whiteboard in your kitchen, so you've got the kids and everything organized, if you have a work calendar and people schedule appointments for you, just take a look at that. And let's start with some bookends. When is your first obligation of the day? When is your last obligation of the day? Okay. So that at least gives you a starting point. So you know that, okay, when is a reasonable time for me to wake up and how much time might I have before that first obligation? Your first obligation could be, waking up your kids to get them ready for school. Your first obligation could be you have to, be at a workout to meet a group of people at 5:30 a.m., whatever. You have to be at work at 8, something like that. But look at where those obligations fall and then start filling in the gaps and paying attention to the bookends. Yeah. And then also, let's not just say work is an obligation or other people are the obligations or my kids are the obligations. You're an obligation to yourself too. Right? You have to eat, you have to sleep, you have to take care of yourself in certain ways. So how do those fall on the priority list? Are you the type of person that you're constantly just ignoring them or disregarding that you have these needs and then eventually you implode or you burn out or you just like collapse into bed every night because you're so in demand by other people and things that you're not taking taking care of yourself. So
Right.
so that's another really big piece, not just the eating part, which again, that's a basic need. You guys do
Yeah.
not feel guilty about taking a lunch break or, eating a snack in a meeting or whatever you have to do. Like, you've got to serve those necessities.
Yeah. And what I like about that whole idea of just kind of looking at the week ahead is, I mean, for most of us, there are things that aren't work related that are already in our week, right? It may be
Yeah.
a doctor's appointment or a kid's practice or a dinner with friends or, just whatever. And so if you can look at kind of like the week in like a global perspective and go, okay, like not only can I begin to plan my work tasks around those things, but I can also see like what days are going to be busier. And this is something that I've found to be really beneficial for clients. Like, oh, okay, Tuesday is going to be nuts. Well, hey, let's make a double batch of dinner on Monday. So all you got to do is heat stuff up. Or
Yes.
maybe this is a great day for something in the crock pot. You can put it in the morning. And so, and you can look at, okay, where do I need to bend and flex? Where do I need to make some things easier? Or maybe that's a night you plan on just grabbing something. Okay, if
Yep.
it's planned, great. That's fine. But you can look at how can I load these days a little bit differently? Because you got a crazy day and you're like, yeah, we're gonna have, some big meal. Well,
Yeah.
you're just
Involved dinner that takes two
yeah,
hours.
it's
Yeah.
only going to be stressful, and so I think it really lends itself to a lot of stress relief in that way too, because you can
Mm-hmm.
kind of look at how you load your days, which is really important, I think. So,
Yeah. And I
yeah.
have a client actually that is finding that out. I mean, it's taken a lot of observation and kind of working through things, but she has a very demanding job and she often has back to back to back meetings that are sort of enforced upon her from,
Mhm.
work colleagues and working with people in other countries and different things. But then she also is very dedicated to her training, her athletic training. And if it's a really hard workout and it's at 5 p.m. and it's 2 hours, she's not going to want to, like, she loves cooking and it's not a problem, but she's not going to want to get this involved meal. And so it very much became this attention to, let's look at your week ahead. How can you make that day easier? And you're exactly right, like looking at, oh man, I'm not going to feel like if I don't start this workout until in the evening, or if I have to go to this evening meeting and I'm not home until 6:30 or 7, I'm not going to want to spend all this time cooking.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden you feel more armed with knowledge
Yeah.
and preparation and
Yeah.
choice. That's another big thing, is people don't feel like they're given the choice of how they spend their time. A lot of
Mhm.
times when we see these work barriers, a lot of it is sort of imposed on you, right?
Mhm.
By a boss or a coworker or somebody who's managing your calendar for you. And you feel that lack of control that we talked about earlier. If you can sort of prepare yourself for that, doesn't that feel way better? And don't you feel a little more confident in, I
Yeah.
have these ways that I can approach it and still feel like I'm doing what I need to do for me to be successful?
I really like the way you said that, armed, because that's just a really good way to think about that. Because like you're saying, I think so often we're reactive to everything. Life is just happening and we have zero control. And maybe this is a big part of why people feel so busy, is because we're always reacting to things, right? It's always
Mm-hmm.
like, this happened, now I got to figure this out. And when you take some time to do time management, it's you're being proactive about stuff. It's like it puts you in the driver's seat for at least a lot of things. Sure,
Mm-hmm.
if you have a boss who isn't super respectful of your time, you might have to be reactive to a lot of stuff. And that can be frustrating. But there's a whole lot of the rest of your life that you can probably determine a lot of and dictate when it happens.
Mm-hmm.
And even I think even if you only have partial control of your days and weeks to act with that agency, if I have control over this, it it really feels empowering. And I think it can
Mm-hmm.
really help feel like your life is out of control and like you're in the driver's seat for a lot of it. And I just like how you said that. It does. It
Yeah.
gives you you're armed against it. It gives you weapons to combat this stuff that just kicks our asses
Seems
in the
like,
week.
yeah, it seems like it's just coming at you so fast. And
Yeah.
one of the other things is first knowing yourself. Some people thrive in that high pressure, sort of chaotic, putting out fires all day type of environment. I would argue
Thanks.
that there's, yeah, I know,
Not me.
like us. Um, I would argue that there's probably limits to that, even though people like to think that they can do it all and that they thrive. Something has to give,
Sure.
whether it is your physical health, whether it's some relationships that you have in your life, something has to give.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I also think the vast majority of people don't thrive in that kind of environment. Like there's a tipping point, we
Right.
all can manage up to a point. Find out where that point is for you.
Mm-hmm.
Identify it. Notice how you feel physically when that stress hits, when that adrenaline's pumping because you just realized you forgot about some deadline and all of a sudden you have to like crunch it in. Think about those things and feel them and know yourself and know, like,
Right.
when I was training full time, professionally, I would really anticipate, like, when am I probably going to be hungry?
Mm-hmm.
And when do I have to fit in? Here's my training calendar. These are the times I need to go to work. And I have date night with Matt and hopefully one or two other evenings that I can spend with him or with friends.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, those are my pieces. And I know I need to sleep this much every night.
Right.
Then when do I think I'm getting hungry in the day? Like, when can I anticipate that? I would bring so much food with me just in case. Just in case. And it just became this automatic thing where I was constantly thinking about, like, I work until 6 tonight. And I know that I'm very hungry by the time 5 p.m. rolls around.
Mm-hmm.
It's very possible that I'll need to eat something before I even leave work to come home to actually make dinner. So there
Right.
were all of these things that I had to piece together, but I felt so much calmer heading into this very highly demanding day if I had that sort of structure and that,
Yeah.
those kind of guardrails of my day that I'm kind of, I know how this is probably going to feel.
Right.
And
What
then,
gives you control in a day
yeah,
that would otherwise feel out of control completely?
yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
communicate that to people too.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a hectic day, make sure that you tell the people in your life, whether it's a boss or a spouse or,
Yeah.
geez, I've run into friends in the grocery store or something, and I'm just like, I got to keep moving. Sorry, I got to go. Like, I've got a
Mm-hmm.
busy day. I'll call you later, and make a point to follow up on that, of course. But communicate with those people around you who, could possibly ask you to do them a favor or impose a little bit more of a time crunch on that
Right.
day. Make sure that you express that. And that can be hard for people to do too, because a lot of people look at it as a sign of weakness to put
Mm-hmm.
boundaries up. You're actually, it's a very good self-preservation technique.
Well, I think it's a sign of strength. I agree with you that we view it as like a weakness because I don't know. There's just I don't know what it's like outside of America. This is my only experience, right? It may be wildly different in other countries, but here, like we just do like we talked about, it's like a badge of honor to be busy and to not have time to be doing all the things and helping everyone that ever asks you and involved in all volunteering and just like to just be like so spread so thin. It's like, yeah, I'm doing it. I'm
Mm-hmm.
doing everything. And the thing is though, is like when people get spread thin like that, like I think you're weak because I think the more things you're giving your energy to, the less energy you have to give to a specific thing. And so if you're giving your energy to 40 things in a week, well, you know what? Like how well are you actually doing these things?
Yeah.
Versus if you're doing less, how much better can you do those things?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, and then just, yeah, like you said, like with boundaries, I think that's, to me, that's an internal strength to stand firm in that stuff because, to be honest, a lot of people don't react well to being told no. Hey, do you want to do this thing? Even if it's a fun thing, to say, no, I'm not going to, come over on Friday night because I've had a long week and I need to, that can be a hard thing to do, you
Yeah.
know? If someone needs something to have those boundaries, I think it does take a lot of strength, and it enables you to be even stronger, I think, because it's really, like we talk about all the time, it's just really practicing high self-care of, like,
Mhm.
if I'm going to do things well, then I have to take care of this, right? You can't pour from an empty cup, right? We've said that before. Like, if we're just
Mhm.
spread so thin, we don't have anything in us, then what are we doing well? Probably
Yeah.
nothing.
Yeah. And I do want to follow up on when you said, if you tell people no,
Hmm.
some people don't react well to that, which is true. I also think that people that care about you the most will react surprisingly well and supportive of that, especially if it becomes a pattern that you're good at boundaries. And I
Hmm.
I had to really practice that a lot when, again, when I was in training and my schedule was so demanding. I really had to put some boundaries on those things. And it came around that so many of my friends and family knew that, okay, well, this is how the priorities lie, and this is Erin's schedule, and we're really hopeful that she can make it at these things, but I couldn't always do it. um, when it comes to work, that's a little bit harder because you don't always tell your boss no, right?
I'm not going to do that project. Nah, I think
No,
I'll
I don't think
pass.
so. Not feeling that one. At the same time, I think it is respectable to be upfront about,
Mm-hmm.
I can do this. Let me be clear on the deadline, what you expect of me. Like, just be very, very clear. And then put those tasks or break it down into your calendar and block out some time, because if you agree to a project or to a series of meetings and you don't actually like prioritize that and block it out and you say, yes, I can do that, I think it looks much more poorly on your time management if
Yeah.
you tend to be flaky or tend to not follow through or don't meet those deadlines. Yes, I know that you're really trying to get everything done. You're trying to be the superhero overachiever. But
Mm-hmm.
what's happening is you're by failing to kind of set those boundaries and say no to some things, you're opening yourself up to, like Michael said, doing 1,000 things semi okay, mediocre,
Yeah.
instead of really excelling at
Yeah.
some of the things that speak to you. So that could be a helpful
Yeah.
approach in the workplace.
Yeah.
And we talked about a few of these time management techniques already, but we
Yeah.
could go through.
You want to go through those? Okay. So
Yeah.
these are 5 time management techniques. And I think, these could be adjusted and changed, and maybe there's more that you would need to do. Maybe some of them, I don't know. I think this isn't like these are the 5 you must do, but I think they're pretty solid. So the first one is to be intentional, and kind of like we've already talked about, like this, I think requires like a to-do list for your day. What do I need to accomplish in this week? What days am I going to do these things on?
Mm-hmm.
And then beyond that, I think it's really important, like, okay, here's like, I have my to-do list for today, right? For Wednesday. I prioritize those things. Like, what do I need to get done today? What has to
Yeah.
happen today? And let me look at those first. I'm intentionally doing the things that need to be done today, because I'm really good at getting caught up in something that doesn't even have a
Yeah.
deadline,
Yeah.
right?
Like creating some tidy tea leaves on some random website like I did.
I feel like that's some of the most important work you've done, Aaron. So,
But yeah, you're right. Like, I mean, it's funny how, and I had that in my notes too, to talk about what has to be done and
hmm,
what you would like to be done.
yeah,
And that's, yeah. And you talk about rank tasks by priority.
yeah. I think that it's really helpful, and that's the second. The second technique is to prioritize. So I kind of blended those two, I guess. But rank them by priority, so like, what's the first thing you need to do, right? What are the things that you have to do today at least? And maybe there are, set times for some of those. Like in this Wednesday today, recording this podcast is a high priority for me. It's got to be done today, but it's not the first thing I'm going to do because we don't record till noon my time. So maybe there are things that don't have as high of a priority, but I'm going to do them before because this once said at a later time. So just looking at your day, like really what needs to be done and what order is the best way to do these things. Because often, at least for me, I think for a lot of us, there are things we have in our day that if I need to push that to tomorrow, it's no biggie. It's not a big deal. And that's a really good thing to not get caught up in doing today, because otherwise I'm not going to get the things I don't done today done. And then the third one is to be focused, which this took me a long time, because kind of hearkening back to our social media episode a few weeks ago, man, I would just constantly get sucked into my phone. You know, I'd be in the middle of something, I just pick it up, and then it's like 10 minutes go by and it's like, what am I doing? You know, and so if we can minimize and or eliminate distractions as much as possible, so we can really stay focused, man, that's a game changer. You know, I work at home, and Sophie is 4.5. She's not in school or anything. She's here all the time, and she's wonderful and amazing. She's loud and wild and crazy too. And so I tend to work with headphones in, listen to music that isn't distracting to me, but helps me kind of zone in and focus. I often have my phone in a drawer, or sometimes in the other room if I'm just really struggling to stay focused. Because as soon as I slip with my focus, what do? I pick up my phone. Like, if I'm not going to be working right now, I was able to do something else. So, you know, having, like we talked about a couple of weeks ago, having, you know, notifications turned off on social media stuff, maybe putting your phone in airplane mode, just so you're not getting, you know, texts and calls when you're trying to be hyper focused, can really go a long way, because I think we often work very distracted. And I'm often surprised at how much I can get done in 20 or 30 minutes if I'm really, really focused. Okay, fourth one is to be structured. Aaron talked about this a lot, but just like blocking your workout, when am I going to do what? 11 to 11:30, I'm doing this. You know, 11:30 to 12:30, I'm doing this. And then where's my break in here? Where's my 10 minutes to go and refresh and recharge and come back so I can be more productive? But just structuring things out in that way. And then the last one is to be self-aware. And that's just kind of paying attention to where you really are putting your time into, you know, track your time. How long am I spending on these things? Should I be spending that much time on this thing? Or is that because I'm distracted, I'm doing other stuff, I'm not staying focused, that kind of stuff? Because I think that gives you some good data and feedback for planning future weeks, to know, here was the plan, how did I spend things, where did I put my time and energy and resources, and how can I do that better in the future? So those are the 5 techniques.
Yeah, that time tracking can be, I mean, it's just like keeping a food log or an exercise log or something, right? Because it's keeps you accountable, and you'll really start to notice how those gaps of time sucked into your phone or whatever you end up doing just eats into the day. So I think that is a really good one. And just a quick story on the blocking your time, you know, especially your work calendar. One of my good friends that I run with was telling me that her company, she works and lives here in Boise, but her company is based in California, and they have these team calls, right? And her supervisor was saying how, with the, you know, the pandemic situation and everybody feeling burnout and struggling with this, that he was championing their team taking time for self-care. Like, you don't have to be at your computer at, you know, all the time and blah, blah, blah. Like, I want you to take breaks. I want you to do this. So she was feeling this herself. Like, she was struggling as a team leader to find time for herself to do these things and go for a run. And so she's like, I called his bluff, and I sent out an email to my whole team and CC'd him, and basically said, okay, team, we're going to have a standing meeting every Tuesday for an hour, but we're not going to meet. You are to take that hour to get your workout in, to get outside, to, you know, do something for yourself that's self-care. And like, she put that in there and was like, this is a quote work requirement that you take this hour and spend it in a self-care kind of way. And her boss totally loved it, was like, thanks for taking the initiative, like, thought it was great. And I was like, just I mean, I still kind of get goosebumps thinking about it because I'm like, this is the kind of culture we need a little bit more of. And we need supervisors. If we have any managers out there listening to our podcast or anybody who has influence in this way, we need that kind of buy-in and support, because if your employees feel like they are valued and supported enough that they are given the time to take care of themselves and to feel like they have a better handle on the day's tasks and their work responsibilities, you will see an improvement in rapport around the office. You'll see an improvement in productivity. You'll probably see an attitude adjustment. I know that I was like I was on the ball for my boss at the health department because she was so flexible with allowing me, time to get my training done and stuff. I was like, I'll take on that project or that task, or I'll do these presentations, I'll train that staff, like whatever you want, because I felt so supported. So
well, yeah, and I think you have greater employee loyalty, you have greater productivity, higher employee retention, because when people feel cared about, guess what? They stick around. I've even heard some, like the bigger tech companies, they'll like, you have as many vacation days as you want, and your schedule is whatever your schedule is. We don't care. Just get your work done. If you get your work done, you have zero issues, which makes sense. Like why do we have to work from these, I'm getting off topic here, but
very
these set times just, if you get your work done, you get your work done. Who cares?
So I had this great link that I will put in the show notes. I'm not going to read it all to you because I think it's from the University of St. Augustine for health sciences. And it talks about 9 time management techniques and tools. And there's some people might be familiar with the 80-20 rule, the Pareto analysis, I think is what it was originally called, where the idea is that 20% of your actions are responsible for 80% of outcomes. And so basically, it's for analytical thinkers, problem solver types, because it's a very analytical approach. But that is explained in here. The Pomodoro technique, which is another very popular one. And that's the one where you basically select, that's for you, Michael. Michael's pointing to himself.
Do you remember my productivity planner I've talked about? That's what they use in there. Is that Pomodoro technique.
Yeah. I've heard a lot of people use it. Is basically you select the task, you set a timer. I'm focused for this 20, 25 minutes, depending on the task. And then you take a break, and you have that break at the end that you have to take.
Yeah, I think it's 5 minutes. I think it's 25 minutes work, 5-minute break, 25-minute work. And it doesn't always, at least for me, I didn't always work out like that, but I was really conscious of, okay, I finished this block. Let me step away for a minute. And it's helpful because you just shake it off and you refocus and you're more productive.
This one is for me. This is the Eisenhower Matrix. Yes, by Dwight Eisenhower. Where he used this in the army before he became president, where you basically just have these 4 blocks of they're based by urgency and importance.
Oh, I didn't know
if it's urgent and important, you do it. If it's not urgent, but it's important, you decide when you're going to do it. If it's urgent, but not very important, then you delegate it out and say, this needs to be done, run to the store for me, whatever. And if it's not urgent or not important, you shove it off your calendar and you don't worry about it. And this is helpful for me because I am one of those people that, like, with house cleaning or with that thing that I just noticed, that thing that needs to be fixed or that I've been meaning to do and I'm not doing it, I will then put them on my to-do list. And I'm like, I have to get that done. But then something else that's really important and urgent comes up and I'm like, it stresses me out because I still want to do the thing that's not important. So this is a good matrix for me. I'm not going to go through all the rest. They're very good. I encourage you to read them. But this one I will mention. Eat that frog technique.
I almost brought that up earlier. Yep. I almost brought that up. Eat the frog.
So apparently, do you know the origins of that technique?
No.
It's a Mark Twain quote.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
I guess it's named after a Mark Twain quote. Eat a live frog first thing in the morning and nothing worse will happen the rest of your day.
Yeah.
So it's basically like taking a look at the thing that needs to happen today.
The thing
and
you don't want to do.
Possibly even the shittiest thing.
Yep. The worst thing. What's the thing you're going to push off for the rest of the day?
Writing that email you don't want to write, or like tackling
Conversation
that.
or
Yeah. Get it done and just eat that frog. And
Mhm.
that really, in fact, that shifts my energy for the day. If I get that thing out of
Yeah.
the way, I'm like, whoa. And
Otherwise, it's just
sometimes it
hanging
wasn't,
over you.
yeah, sometimes it wasn't
Like,
even
oh
as bad
God, I
as
gotta
I
do the
was
thing.
like spinning in my head. So,
I would say most often for me, it's not as bad.
right. So yeah, we'll link this article. I encourage you to read it. We'll link it in the show notes.
Good.
Uh, anything else you wanted to add today?
I think so.
I think that does it.
Yeah, I think we'll do that.
Okay.
You got a meaning in the mundane?
I will have to come up with.
Oh,
Michael,
Aaron!
you just got so excited.
I
You just
did.
got so excited.
Because this never
Oh,
happens to Aaron, and it happens to me actually, it hasn't happened to me for a long time, but like the
yeah,
first 7 months of recording the podcast, it happened a lot. Like, oh yeah, go ahead. I'm
I
gonna
know.
save mine.
I have several. I just have to think of them.
Oh, so it's not that you don't have any, so you have too many. Okay, I got you.
I have lots. Yeah.
I have so many.
Okay. I picked one.
Yeah, it's because you
I'm
were
going to
just thinking
start.
about it. I'm
No.
on to
Okay.
you. I'm on to you. Don't
So
trust
I
her,
have,
people.
I have this app on my phone called Seek, Seek. I might have
Mhm.
talked about it last year because I put it on my phone when I was doing the Trails
Maybe.
Challenge here in Boise.
Mhm.
I got really into identifying wildflowers and plants.
Mm.
And one of my friends had recommended this app. It's so great. You take pictures of the plants. You could do animals too. And it identified Matt as a human. So it has that going for it,
So it's broken.
Yeah, I know. I know. So we were on this big ride on Monday, my buddy Troy and I, and it was, it was kind of spitting rain on us. It was cloudy. We were about 70 miles into a 125-mile day. The last thing you really want to do is stop
Sure.
and for any reason other than something necessary.
Sure.
And there were these beautiful purple flowers alongside the road as we're riding up. And I kept saying, like, I want to identify those flowers. I want to identify those flowers. Well, we got up to our turnaround point, came down, and it's a slight descent back toward Boise. And so you're making time and you
That's
finally are
nice.
feeling a little bit better and you just want
Mhm.
to keep going, right? Because the miles are ticking by. And I still wanted to identify these flowers, but I'll be damned if I'm going to make Troy stop if he doesn't have to. And Troy just speaks up and was like, "Oh, there's those purple flowers. Let's stop and look at it. Like, let's stop and identify them."
Yes.
And it was very nice because he's just a great writing buddy anyway. But it was just a sweet, like, oh, okay. Like he remembered that was something I had wanted to do. And even though part of me was like, oh my God, I don't want to stop, it was just nice to, stop. And we didn't smell the flowers, but stopping and appreciating
Mhm.
those things and not getting so sucked into the task at hand that you forget about those. So that's
Nice.
fine.
Nice. I like that. Yeah. Good job, Troy.
Yeah.
Where'd it come
Troy
to, buddy?
listens. Troy
Does
listens to
he?
the podcast too,
Good
so
job, Troy.
he'll like the shout out.
You made Aaron's day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Cool. I like that.
the flower is called a bush penstemon. It's a purple.
Hmm.
Penstemon is a really cool flower that I've been seeing around Boise a lot, and they almost have these like overhanging blossoms that kind of, bend toward the ground, but they're all different colors. Anyway, there you
Cool.
go.
Nice. I like it.
Mhm.
So for me, so we had like just I don't know, 5, 6 days of just so much rain. Like, I
Right.
mean, several inches over the course of like 5 or 6 days. Like, I think we got almost 2 in one night. Like, it just
Oh, geez.
poured. And so it's just soup out. We had no sun, not enough to dry anything out. And it was just gross outside for like several days. And so, like, the kids weren't outside, the dog's barely outside. It's like going outside and peeing and like, can I come in? It's disgusting. So we were just kind of cooped up, and so just 2 days ago, we finally got like some sun, and I took Sophie and the dog out front, and just watching them both be like, I'm free, like Sophie is just like riding in circles on her scooter. The dog's just like tearing around all over the place. And just to watch them, like, I mean, the dog, sure, but Sophie in particular, just to like just thoroughly enjoy like being outside and in the sunshine and moving her body and riding her scooter. It was just really fun because it was just, it's something we do all the time, but when you haven't got to do it, not even like they chose not to, they just didn't want to. It's like, you can't, sorry, we're not going outside.
Right.
It was just really fun to see her just be so like elated about something that we do all the time. It was really
I love
cute.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was fun.
That's it. That's especially with kids or pets, to watch them just get excited about it.
Yeah. Scooter the dog. He's just like sprinting in circles. Just like, oh my God. It was so funny to watch him.
I love it.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
thank you, everybody.
In the interest of time, we'll let you go.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening, as always, and send us any feedback or questions you have.
Yep. And as always, review, rate, share, all that stuff. We appreciate it.
Hey, thanks.